Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who didn't see my introduction speech, my name is Mstevens. Have you ever thought to yourself, where's a cop when I need one? Well, a bill passed in 2004 made that thought a bit more feasible. According to the Department of Homeland Security, a bill passed in 2004 called HR218, with the Law Enforcement Officers Safety Act of 2004, was signed into law by President George Bush in 2004. Now, HR218 is a step in the right direction for the following reasons. First, HR218 allows our active duty law enforcement and our retired law enforcement officers to carry concealed weapon in all 50 states. Secondly, HR218 has provided additional coverage to our law enforcement and our citizens alike across the country at no cost to the taxpayers. And thirdly, what HR218 has done is it has a psychological effect on the criminal's mind. Now let's cover those points. The first point, essentially what HR218 has done, it has allowed our law enforcement, active duty law enforcement officers and our retired law enforcement officers to carry a concealed weapon in all 50 states. According to an article written in 2004 in the Organized Crime Digest, prior to HR218, a law enforcement officer could be subject to arrest themselves for carrying their weapon while in another state. However, active federal law enforcement officers have always been allowed to carry their weapons in all 50 states. Prior to HR218, though, a state could regulate and control when active duty law enforcement and retired law enforcement officers could carry in their state. Now, just because an officer is off duty doesn't mean they're safe. All too often, law enforcement officers are victims of crime themselves. It could be for revenge, and it could be just that they were targeted as a law enforcement officer. But again, what HR218 is doing is allowing these officers to continue to protect themselves while they're off duty, and even after their careers have ended and they're retired. Secondly, what HR218 has done is providing this additional coverage at no cost to the taxpayers. Now, HR218 was originally sponsored by a Republican representative named Randy Cunningham from California. Now, what he suggested was that we arm our nation's retired law enforcement officers. And that's what HR218 has allowed to happen. Fred Reed of the Washington Times was quoted as stating that our retired law enforcement officers have major virtues. They've spent a lifetime dealing with criminals, and that's a lot of expertise to throw away. And I agree. Furthermore, again, like active duty law enforcement officers, just because you're retired and your career is over doesn't mean you're safe. Again, a retired law enforcement officer could have a meeting, incidentally, with a criminal that they had arrested a long time ago, and say that criminal did 15 years in prison. I don't think the criminal's first response to the officer is going to be to shake his hand and thank him for spending half his life in prison. So again, HR218 allows those retired law enforcement officers to continue to protect themselves while their careers have ended. Thirdly, what HR218 has done is it has a psychological effect on the criminal's mind. And what I mean by that is that, say a criminal has failed in an attempt to rob an establishment or a person because of an off-duty law enforcement officer or retired law enforcement officer. Now, that criminal is going to think twice before attempting the same crime. Furthermore, he's going to spread the word to his criminal associates that, hey, there's undercover or off-duty officers in the area. And if I attempt to rob somebody and this person is an off-duty officer, the outcome could be catastrophic for me, and I could end up in the morgue. So, again, a psychological effect. An example of that was an article written in the Washington Post in 2009. The article stated that an off-duty D.C. police officer was parking his car on the Capitol Heights Street in Prince George's County. He was approached by two men who brandished weapons, handguns, and demanded the officer's keys. The off-duty officer was able to quickly pull his weapon out and fire. The suspects ran away. The officer, A, was unhurt, and B, retained his property. It's unknown if the other suspects were injured or not. However, the point is, prior to HR218, had that bill not been signed into law, the outcome could have been catastrophic for the officer had he not been allowed to carry his weapon outside his working jurisdiction. Now, it's not often that our nation's politicians get it right. How often is our nation's citizens given something for free? The answer is almost never or rarely. But that's exactly what HR 218 has done. Again, it's provided additional coverage for our law enforcement officers and citizens across the country at no cost to the taxpayer. Now, no one thing is going to completely eradicate crime. However, small steps in the right direction, like HR 218, will pave the way. Thank you for listening.